in the not-too-distant future, our DNA will determine everything about us. A minute drop of blood, saliva, or a single hair determines where you can work, who you should marry, what you're capable of achieving. In a society where success is determined by science, divided by the standards of perfection, one man's only chance.
How do you expect to pull this off? I don't know exactly.
Is to hide his own identity.
This is the last day that you're going to be you and I'm going to be me.
By borrowing someone else's.
Congratulations. What about the interview? That was it.
Do you think you'd be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for who you are, what you are?
I have a feeling he might be there under false pretenses, playing somebody else's hand.
They've got my picture plastered up all over the place. They'll recognize me. They won't recognize me.
They'll recognize me.
I don't recognize you. They won't believe that one of their elite could have suckered them all this time.
They are going to find me.
But in a place where any cell from any part of your body can betray you, how do you hide? When we all shed 500 million cells a day. Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman. Welcome to Gattaca.
Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back,
listeners.
We're going out of October. It is early November. We're talking about a good movie.
It was a long, spooky season, but I feel like sci-fi still kind of will bridge the gap between spookiness and
yes,
our normal fare here on the show. But yeah, we picked a good movie this week. Listeners, my name's Pete.
And I'm Scott, and these are the movies that made us gay. It is just us today. We do not have a guest.
Yes.
We are talking about the movie Gattaca, written and directed by Andrew Niccol, released October 24th, 1997. The dystopian science fiction drama thriller Gattaca.
Dystopian science fiction drama thriller.
I took that off of Wiki.
I love it.
I always love how Wiki describes movies sometimes.
There's a lot going on there, but there's a lot going on in this movie. My mind is blown that this shit is from 1997.
Yeah.
First of all,
I think for the most part,
old as hell.
It's old as hell, but I think it's aged really well.
Well, I mean that's by design. It's part of the dystopian futuristic retro-futurism fantasy that they're building in this movie. So it's very much designed to kind of not really age very well. I mean, even the we'll get all into this stuff, but even the technology that
we'll get into the visual look of the movie
in the movie
and the technology.
Not, it's like of course it's not, it's dated, but not in a way that's like, oh, that's so 97, because they weren't even looking to.
Yeah, it doesn't quite come off as like
future.
Logan's Run.
Right. Or maybe it does a lot. But yeah.
Kind of the 90s Logan's Run.
Yeah, a little bit. But, I think that was one of the hallmarks of this movie. That was one of the things that me at 19, when I saw this, I was just like, you guys, this movie's so cool. Like, you don't even know.
So I've been wanting
this sci-fi, like just telling all my friends, like this sci-fi movie, like it really makes you think, you guys. It's not like a regular sci-fi. It's a cool science fiction movie.
It's the cool sci-fi movie.
Yeah, I very much felt that when I watched it.
I've been wanting to do this movie for a long time in the show. It's always been on the alternates of we should do a Gattaca episode when it's just me and Pete. I feel like we've come close to kind of putting this in the schedule, but I kind of saw a little window in early November, and I wanted to talk about Gattaca, and especially how kind of homoerotic this movie is, that I feel like it's not really given its flowers as being this mega queer movie from the 90s, but
Right.
it's clearly there when you revisit this movie, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like in 97, I was not really even picking up on that. My 19-year-old self was very much coming into my own as a gay adult man, but I feel like I still was just like, no, you guys, this is a sci-fi movie that makes you use your noodle.
Do you ever think about if you were asked what your favorite movie was when you were in the 8th grade, what you would say?
No.
Because
Would say Back to the
I
Future
think
too.
that I would have said Gattaca. Of just sort of a movie when I was a young teenager that really like stood out to me as being one of my favorite movies. I think I would say Gattaca.
I was 12 in the 8th grade, so I wasn't quite a teenager yet. Sure. Yeah. I mean, had I seen this movie at 12 or 13, I would.
I mean, aren't you
definitely
like
would have been obsessed with it?
13 years old, 14 in the 8th grade?
I'm saying I was 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think I definitely would have appreciated it at that age for sure. I for sure loved it when I did see it when like I said I was 19 when I watched this and yeah,
you
it was
see it?
No, I did not see it in the
You didn't see
theater.
it in the same. Not a lot of people saw
I
this movie in the
don't
theater.
really, recall what I was doing, like what movies I saw at that age. I just know that I was 19 based on the year that it was released. But I know I definitely did not see it in the theater. I'm sure I just rented it on my own just because I wanted to see it, and it was unlike anything that I had seen before. It has a very it has an old Hollywood movie feel to it. Obviously, you watch it and you almost feel like you're watching something like a Double Indemnity, kind of like a noir movie. This could be a black and white movie with, old Hollywood actors from like the 40s or the 50s. But again, it doesn't feel dated. It feels very current. I was very on board with it because it had Ethan Hawke, who I grew up with,
Uma,
and
and Jude.
Yeah, and so I was just very much on board with anything that Ethan Hawke was doing at the time. Uma Thurman, I had on my radar. I was aware of who she was as an actress. I knew she was just this, beautiful, statuesque model.
I've talked about on the show
actor.
just being obsessed with Uma Thurman when I was a child. Like thinking that she was the most beautiful woman that I have ever seen. I mean, I can probably quote every line of dialogue from her in both The Truth About Cats and Dogs and Batman and Robin. And I mean, she made all of those movies back to back. Truth About Cats and Dogs, Gattaca, Batman and Robin. So yeah, she's just kind of on a roll in the late 90s.
Right. And I think she was very much positioned to be this most beautiful woman you've ever seen, kind of this entity out there. And then this movie is where the two of them kind of their relationship kind of got started, and so that is like this epic, like Hollywood.
I think
kind
that
of,
Maya
story.
Hawke has a lot of. I mean, should she be thanking the casting director of Gattaca in Jersey Films?
Sure. And yeah, I think this was most likely the very first thing that I had ever seen Jude Law in. And I remember being fascinated by this English man, this English boy that's in this movie, and just this face on him and this, this just way about him, about him in this movie, about the way he spoke and just this attitude. And I was very taken by Jude Law when I saw this. And the rest was history with that one. But yeah, I think it's just this movie has all the right elements for someone of a certain age to be like, that is my favorite movie. Especially somebody that was very into sci-fi and science fiction. And I think the big kind of like ideas in this movie about,
predestination of genetics, just kind of having your entire life mapped out for you in this society.
And like they were talking about in the one of the little special features we saw, like that's something that's been kind of touched on in things like Brave New World and all that. But I don't know. I just there was just something about this movie, and also this movie does have this very like timeless kind of otherworldly feel to it. But at the same time, a lot of these locations are in Southern California.
Well, I know that was a budgetary issue, that this was a very modest movie for the studio. I can't remember what studio did this movie. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it was produced by Jersey Films, that it was given a very modest budget. They could probably not create a lot of sets for this movie on sound stages, so they had to work with pre-existing buildings.
Well,
and just anything that they thought read
it
as
works really
futuristic.
well to have this like brutalist architecture that is present in campuses, universities, medical buildings, government buildings, to stand in for things like the Gattaca Corporation and all that. So,
Marin County Civic Center, that's one of the last big Frank Lloyd Wright buildings that he designed.
in Marin.
It's for the interiors and exteriors of
Anyone
Gattaca.
from Marin would cancel their subscription to our podcast. If you don't say Marin. Yeah. So, listeners, again, this is from 1987. Not the oldest movie we've done on the show by a long shot, but, older. And I also think that this movie may not be on everybody's radar. So maybe we should give a quick kind of like synopsis of what do you tell people this movie's about?
It's it looks at the future society that is driven by, is it eugenics? Eugenics. That you can kind of conceive people through specifically picking what their DNA is to kind of give them the best hereditary traits. And your entire life is mapped out for you when you were born.
Right. Well, as everyone is well familiar with, the eugenics wars that were started by the Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
But so eugenics is, kind of, it's the science of manipulating genes, right? And, parents going in and artificially creating embryos and picking and choosing the best parts and pretty much getting a designer baby, right? I want this color hair, this color eyes, no predisposition to any disease or maladies or
heart conditions,
any sort of anything like that. And so the premise of this movie is this is the society that they're living in, and it just is the not too distant future, which is very non-committal for a sci-fi movie, but it's also fun. It's a not too distant future, and most people in Western society are having their children this way. Right. And if you're not having your child, if you're having your kid the old-fashioned way, just by fucking, it's like this child is kind of shunned because they don't really fit in with the rest of society. They can be prone to anything, any kinds of, diseases or whatever, and they're kind of deemed inferior. So they get kind of like lower caste kind of jobs, right?
Yeah.
They aren't able to get the better jobs in society. Ethan Hawke is one of these kids.
He's one of these kids, the character of Vincent, who is conceived naturally, and his genetic profile indicates that he will have a probability of severe disorders and an estimated lifespan of 30.2 years.
And then the shitty thing is his parents have another kid, and they do it the other way. They I guess, I don't know, they save up money or something. So the thing is, at the beginning of the movie, the mother wants to name the son Anton after the father. And at the last minute, the dad says, "Oh, Vincent Anton." Okay. So Ethan Hawke is not Anton, he's Vincent Anton. Somehow they gather up enough money to have their kid the regular way that everybody's doing it. They pick and choose all this good stuff. They have the super baby. And this super baby, they named this baby
Little Anton Jr., played by Lauren Dean.
And it's his younger brother, right? But the thing is, as they grow, little Vincent is sickly. He's smaller. He's skinnier. He doesn't grow as big and strong as the younger Anton, who is like the genetically superior, quote unquote, baby. And so Vincent Ethan Hawke wants to join the space program and go out into space and visit the moon or Titan, which is a moon of Saturn.
I'm such a dum-dum. I was asking you if Titan was a real moon, and you were like, yes. Yes, it's a real moon.
Look, it's one of the 14 moons of Saturn. Get with it. Well, also, my sister and I had this game. It was a board game. We were kids. And I will have to Google it to figure out what it was called. But essentially, it was Monopoly, but it was the solar system. And so, like, instead of, like, Park Place and, like, you know, Madison Avenue, it was moons of the planets in the solar system. And you were like,
that's
rocket
cute.
Ships. Yeah. So it kind of taught me a good deal about, like, the planetary system.
I think that
the Terran system.
I think that in that Brad Pitt movie Ad Astra, they go to one of the moons of Saturn, I think. I don't think it's this one. Yeah. I can't remember which one.
Yeah. And so, but the other thing about this movie is that all of this science stuff is very vague. And it has this feeling, you know, this retrofuturism is a bit overarching kind of like way to describe the aesthetics of this movie, right? All the cars are like 60s chromed out, like Mr. Bean cars.
I thought the design of the cars was really clever because they use these vintage cars, which I think that these vintage cars,
they look like little Mr. Bean cars.
They're little Mr. Bean cars, but I think that even for like collectors of automobiles,
they're weird.
They're very exclusive. They didn't make a lot of them.
No, they're all weird
And
cars.
they do this cool thing with the sound design is they put this electric sound.
It sounds like the Jetsons
underneath them.
cars.
Yeah. It's kind of clever.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of sounds like the Futurama. Well, the Futurama cars, it's the Jetsons sound effect. It kind of sounds like that. I know that's not what they're going for. They're kind of going for something more sophisticated, but I'm like, it's Jetsons. So this, it's this retrofuturism, which is very much like a mid-century modern, right? Everything's got a clean line, very stark, chrome, metallics, stonework, all this stuff. And all of the imagery of, like, we never really see the rockets or the ships that go into space. We see the launches and it's just like smoke, afterburn.
Yeah. Anything that would read well on camera.
Yeah. But what we do see is like these lines of men in like business suits. And
it's very Kubrick.
What the fuck? I mean, I guess it's very Kubrick. I just thought it was very like Plan 9 from Outer Space. To me, it seems just this very 60s idea of like what eventually it will be like to go into space.
Which I think is really fun.
As part of your job. Mm-hmm. Like, this is my job. They're sending me to space. I'll be back in a month. Put the meatloaf in the oven.
Yeah.
And you go and you take your good hat and like your umbrella and a briefcase. And it's very like Plan 9 from Outer Space. Like, those are the aliens. They're wearing like black lipstick and a cape. But it's like, that's an alien. That's kind of the vibe that.
But it's so cool, though.
But it is very.
I love it.
Very
just
cool.
kind of this kooky retrofuturism.
Yeah,
that's all over this movie. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and like Uma is in these like, I don't know. She's almost very much like a Mugler woman.
Did you notice?
She's giving almost like a very like Patrick Nagel kind of like.
Did you notice
Mugler
who the costume designer is?
Look. No, I did not.
It's Colleen Atwood.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
She wears like these, these business suits with like a pencil skirt like below the knee and like a very like a blouson like top that's like a twisty like with like a high neck. And
I love the silver metallic
crazy
dress that she wears when they go to the nightclub.
Sure, yeah, her going out stuff is so. First off, Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke are a striking couple.
That is a beautiful couple right there.
Striking couple. I think she's taller than him.
A little bit. Well, I mean, Uma's a very tall woman.
Can we ask the producers how tall is Uma Thurman? Hey Siri, how tall is Uma Thurman?
Uma Thurman is 6 feet.
6 feet. Ethan Hawke is 5'11".
Ethan Hawke is, I'm seeing 5'10" on
5'10".
Google. So, I mean, they're not...
Shade. 2 inches taller. That's a good height difference, especially for the woman.
I never get kind of women that are really like hung up on height on men.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
I don't really agree with it.
because you're 5'9".
But I'm also like the average height of the typical man too.
Are you?
Like 5'9", 5'10". I would say that's on average.
Yeah. But no, so we're watching this movie, and we're watching a Blu-ray, right? Or is it a 4K?
It's a 4K.
It's a 4K.
Yeah.
So we're watching a 4K transfer of Gattaca, and I'm looking at our TV, and I'm just like, these shots of Uma in like a medium shot. She's like in the center of the screen, and it's her in like a upswept French twist, and like this, severe business
And that
suit
and that beautiful
And
angular face of hers.
So I'm watching it, and I'm just like, this looks like it was digitally retouched, but it was not, because that was impossible. 97.
You could
just
sort of
her
do it,
face.
but they wouldn't have done it for this movie. Probably
That's just her face. Like, she just looks like her face in this movie is flawless. It looks airbrushed when she's standing still, and it's like, okay, yes, it's a 4K. They did not go in. This movie has it is like Steve's production company. It is like not a big studio. Who distributed this movie?
So this was a Columbia and Sony movie, and produced with Jersey Films.
Jersey Films.
Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, there
Yep.
you go. So, this is not exactly like the biggest budgetist movie of all time. I really doubt that they went into the Gattaca 4K and they're like, let's do a little bit of retouching. No. It's just Uma's face. She just looks like that.
Well, and kind of the irony behind that is the character of Irene is an invalid. But I think that she is just of that level that she looks like Uma Thurman. That
How is she an invalid if she works at Gattaca?
I think that she's let to work at Gattaca because she looks like Uma Thurman. But the character, it's in there with the character, is that she has the heart condition. She has to take the medication.
Right.
So I think that she can work at Gattaca, but I think there's a ceiling of what she can do there.
She's not going into space.
She's not going into outer space.
Sure. So Vincent, first off, he gets a job on the cleaning crew at this company. And Gattaca is this, it's kind of like a SpaceX kind of a corporation. We don't know what they do. All they do is send these rockets to the moon, right?
Well, I think that it's important to talk about the backstory of Vincent growing up with his brother.
Right.
Even before he gets the job as the janitor, because it really informs the character of when he would swim out to the ocean with his brother, Anton Jr. It's just that's just sort of the character wanting to go the distance, even though it might not be possible for him. And then
he could find his way.
And then he ends up winning one of the swimming races. Because he didn't save anything for the distance back.
Okay, well, you have to preface that by saying these swimming races they swim from the shore out directly into the ocean.
Yeah.
It's not across a pool.
As far as they can swim.
Right. And it's chicken essentially, and whoever gets tired and has to turn back first loses. And he always loses because he's smaller and scrawnier, and one day he eventually wins, and the bigger, stronger Anton is the one that says, I need to stop and go back.
He has to help him back.
Yeah.
So just very informative for the character that he can do it.
Right. And that's the thing. It's like we find out that there are these kind of back alley black market ways of him faking his identity to get into the Gattaca Corporation, but that's not enough. He also has to have the physical stamina because they are these daily, check-ins with, running on a treadmill.
They take tabs on everyone.
Yeah. So he has to be able to keep up with that somehow, even though he does have a heart condition. So we need to talk about Jude Law and how this character gets introduced.
So he's introduced with Tony Shalhoub, monk, that he sort of helps out invalids. What do they actually call it? There's a name for it. Hold on, let me check in my
For
notes.
the Tony Shalhoub character?
Yeah.
I don't know. The one thing that I kind of have about this movie is that they try to kind of create this this kind of like language or this future speak about like, oh, well, if if you were born naturally outside of this new genetic modified way, then they call you an invalid, right? And that's like, it's the same as like invalid, right? But Uma Thurman says, oh, you're a godchild. And it's like, okay, all right, fucking Clockwork Orange. Like sometimes trying too hard to introduce these like phrases. I'm like, I don't know. I don't think anybody would say this stuff.
So he gets this chance to pose as a valid by using donated hair, skin, blood, and urine samples from a former swimming star, Jerome Eugene Morrow, who was paralyzed after getting hit by a car. And that's when we're introduced to Jude Law.
Yes, this is the Jude Law character. He had his accident outside of the United States, so it's not yet on any records that he can't walk. And so he has to go through this process of like, he's got like this like stadium buddy situation, this pack of urine that he straps to his thigh every day, and he like goes in and has to do like a pee test in front of this doctor.
The doctor always checking out the dicks on all of these patients.
Well, I mean, he says like to the point where it's uncomfortable. He's commenting on Ethan Hawke's dick, like in every scene he's in. He's just like, oh, by the way, great cock.
Picking out dick size for your kids.
Yeah. Yeah, so he's like walking around all day with a stadium buddy. They do what I initially thought was just a fingerprint scan. I was like, oh, they do that at like Knott's Berry Farm now. But like, no, it's not just a scan. It's a blood test. It's a pinprick. Every time they scan your fingerprint, they're like testing your blood. So it's like he has to do this thing with like fake fingerprints that are filled with blood, like all this whole song and dance every day. And he's got to like scrape himself down to like scrape off all the like dead skin cells and like loose hairs and all this stuff. It's a process. I'm like, at this point, I'm just like, I'll watch the launch from TV. I'm okay. I'll keep vacuuming at Gattaca. I don't need to go through this kind of rigmarole just to get in. But, it's a long, strenuous process. But Jude Law is this character who, he had this great life ahead of him. He had, all this. He was, genetically modified before he was born. He was a swimmer. He could have gone into space if he wanted to. But, yeah, this car accident, you can't predict that.
I was reading about the character name of Eugene. That's his middle name because
eugenics.
He asked him to be called Eugene, and Eugene comes from the Greek word well-born, which he is, and eugenics. I mean, everybody's name in this movie is kind of like Jerome. That's almost like it's almost like you're looking at the word genetics. Jerome. Never mind.
A homonym. Yeah, but that's another thing about this movie. I think that the writer went through great pains to put, symbolism behind everything. Irene is Uma Thurman's character. Her last name is Cassini. And it was the Cassini space mission, and I think there's like Cassini telescopes.
It's from a 17th century Italian astronomer.
Mm-hmm. See how I know these things? I get it from Star Trek, you guys. But I love that Jude Law's character, he's like this alcoholic, and he's very surly.
Yeah.
And he's in a wheelchair, and he lives in this apartment, which is this very like...
I love their little bachelor pad.
It's this very stark, like concrete floors kind of a situation. It's got this spiral staircase, but he's in a wheelchair, and there's no elevator, so he's bound to the first floor, right? And I think the door to get into the apartment is on the second floor.
Yeah.
And he's down there, but he's just very bitter. He's bitter because it's like his life was taken away, but he should have had it and all this stuff. So somehow he ends up with Tony Shalhoub, and it's just like, fuck it, why not? Why don't I just sell my identity? I'll get this money. I'll be able to like swim in as much booze as I want, and all I have to do is like piss in a jar, every day. But it's cool because it's Jude Law and he gets to be this like fun, snarky, like,
Yeah.
kind of like bitchy character. He has a lot of good lines.
First American movie role of Jude Law. I was reading that the Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil would be later in 97.
Sure. Yeah, and that stands to reason why I feel like this is the first thing I ever saw him. He looks very different. He looks so young.
He's a baby.
In this movie. Yeah. I was just like, holy crap. Looks like a different person. But we love when they're on screen together. I think Ethan and Jude Law kind of make a good pair. There's a scene where they're talking about how Ethan Hawke is going to pass for Jude Law because the two, other than them being like two white dudes, don't look that similar.
We're very fascinated with the picture that comes up for Jerome.
Right. I was like, they had to
that comes up in that scan.
Jude Law's. Okay, so the idea, listeners, if you're not familiar, is Jude Law is the character that Ethan Hawke is trying to pass for. And every time they take these scans of his blood or his fingerprint or what have you, this picture comes up on these little screens. And they're these little analog, not digital screens on these devices.
I love that little side effect. That
shitty
little
futuristic devices.
I love
right?
that little sound effect when it comes up on the screen.
Yeah, they just look like little TVs. They look like something out of Star Trek or, Austin Powers or something. And there's this image that is Jude Law's kind of like ID picture. And it's like they manipulated this image in a way that it looks like Jude Law, but it kind of looks like Ethan Hawke. Like the angle of his face, he's like looking down. His face is angled down, his eyes are angled up, and it's like it elongates his chin. I think they may have manipulated the image to kind of like morph their two faces together.
I think so.
But it looks enough like the both of them that if one of them is standing next to it, you're like, okay, you're good to go. Yeah, that is a very like I was obsessed with that. But there's a scene where they're talking about Ethan Hawke and Tony Shalhoub's like, you're gonna have to wear contact lenses. And he's like, well, can't we just like change like surgically alter my eyes? And he's like, oh, they'd see the scars.
Yeah.
But I'm like, but they wouldn't be able to see that you're wearing contacts. So they give him these colored contact lenses because also this character needs glasses, which is the thing where it's like, well, fuck me. I wouldn't be able to survive in this society. I'd be cleaning toilets for sure because I can't see worth a damn without my glasses. So he's got to wear these contacts. And he's like, we have to change the color is wrong. And Jude Law says, my eyes are prettier.
My eyes are prettier. and that pouty little Jude voice.
My eyes are prettier. Yeah, I'm just like, oh my God, this bitch. So it's like there's like this jealousy kind of thing where it's like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like trying to pass yourself off as me. It's like my eyes are fucking prettier. And then there's also this situation where Jude Law's character, the actual Jerome, is 6 feet tall. And in the movie, they tell Ethan Hawke, like, that's a good 2 inches taller than you.
And he's like,
you're not going to.
Maybe I can just wear lifts.
Yeah.
And
like,
even lifts, that's not going to make you that tall.
Yeah, yeah. So they have to do this leg lengthening surgery, which is a real thing. Leg lengthening is a real thing. Rivers Cuomo famously had one leg lengthened.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. He was born with one leg shorter than the other.
Oh, okay.
I think by almost 2 inches. And I remember when he had the surgery.
So he would walk like Tiny Tim or something?
He had a shoe with one shoe had a lift.
Oh, wow.
One shoe was like a little Herman Munster shoe.
Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I love these scenes in the movie though, just like the makeover, making him over into Ethan's scene or making him over into Jude Law scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Because don't we all just want to become
Jude Law?
Jude Law.
Well, yeah.
Somebody that handsome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, all the scenes are really great, especially because Jude Law gets to be super bitchy about it. And yeah, I never really caught on when I first watched it of like the two of them and just like this weird tension that's there.
I mean, they're living in this apartment. Like
yeah, they have to live together.
They're living in this apartment like they're a gay married couple.
Yeah, and you know, when Ethan Hawke does have the leg lengthening surgery, there are scenes where he has to be in these braces and he can't move. So he's either laying on the floor or laying on a counter or something. And so he's just there like reading or whatever. And the other one's over there just like drinking like vodka, like straight out of the bottle. And it's just like, they're these very funny little like slice of life, like home life scenes between the two of them. And then when it does get to the point where Ethan Hawke finally he's ready to go. It's like showtime. It's like day one. Bitch, you're going in. You're going to do the fake fingerprint. You're going to do the fake pee test. And you're going to apply for this job. And that morning, Ethan Hawke's like running around like a crazy person. And they have like a fun little argument.
I love that scene.
And it is a great...
My God, what's wrong with the machine?
There's nothing wrong with the machine. It's a hot sample. You've been drinking again.
I haven't.
Oh, Christ, Eugene. It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
I haven't.
This is no joke. My interview is in an hour. There is more vodka in this piss than there is piss.
All right, I'm sorry. I had half a glass to celebrate. I'm sorry. Try Fridays. That one will be okay.
There's only Wednesday left.
Wednesday. That's the one.
It's a great little argument. I love the two of them in it because, you know, Ethan Hawke's just like, there's more vodka than piss and all these bags. And he's like...
These two queens just bickering with each other.
But I love Jude Law. He's like, I haven't drank. Oh, my God. It's so good.
I mean, just how this movie also just photographs the male body. I mean, even in the opening scenes of this movie is Ethan getting off all of his dead skin particles. Scrubbing off all of his skin particles, nails, bits and pieces of hair, and you get him in that little chamber. That's definitely an image that I remember, like burned into my 13-year-old brain when I was in junior high. Were all of the scenes like that of just how Andrew Niccol just kind of photographs the male body. I don't know. Is that weird?
No, it's not.
Just kind of how it's all photographed?
No, sure, it's not. Because it does. Yeah, because it's lit in like this blue light, and they have him kind of like crouched in this like weird position. It's almost as if he's like in the shower, but he's like sitting. And it's like if you were to sit on your shower, like on the floor of your bathtub, and just like take a brush, and they say when you shower and when you dry yourself off, it's like you're shedding a lot of dead skin at that point. But he's like, it's to the point at this Gattaca Corporation that if they do go in and check, then they just even buy a hair that's left in a brush, which I don't know who's got a brush.
Vincent even planting DNA from Jerome just around the office,
like a hair and a brush in his drawer. Things like that. So he's got to get rid of all of the evidence of himself before he goes in. And, just taking a little vacuum and cleaning out his keyboard and all of that. That's one thing that I'm like, all right, those keyboards look a little 90s. But yeah, so these scenes, and they do it a lot. It's in the opening montage of this movie, is like clipping his nails and cutting his hair and plucking, little these super zoomed in like macro shots of like nail clippings and hair clippings and all that stuff. But they do this thing where they constantly are showing naked Ethan Hawke scrubbing his body. And in 97, Ethan Hawke is probably 27, 28?
Late 20s, I think.
Top of his game, like body,
probably the best that he's ever looked in a movie, as far as I'm concerned.
And so and it's shot in this blue light. It's very like atmospheric. It's very like, almost like a music video. But yeah, there's a lot of lingering shots. There's a shot later on in the movie where he's like he's doing this whole ritual, but like in the ocean,
naked on a beach,
like all butt naked on the beach. Yeah. So, and it's like Uma Thurman's in this movie. We don't get all these long lingering shots of her naked body, you know. It's just Ethan. So finally we get some comeuppance. But
yeah, just kind of scenes like that really make an impression on just kind of young homosexuals. Is just how both of these men look in this movie.
Yeah.
Of just kind of this perfection of both of them.
Yeah, because I mean, Jude Law just looks like that in everything. That's just his face. It's just, congratulations, dude. You just look like Jude Law. But yeah, even in a wheelchair, even just sulking, and they give him like these dark circles under his eyes and all that. But even all that, you're just like, all right, it's Jude Law. we get it. But I definitely didn't pick up on the idea of the two of them sharing this living space and the two of them kind of living together. But watching it now, I'm just like, oh my God. When there's a scene where Vincent takes Jerome out to like a nightclub.
It's when they go and celebrate when it's kind of confirmed that he's going to be going up into space.
Right. And there's like a point where they get home and like Jude Law's drunk and he's got to like pick him up out of the chair and like put him in bed. And I'm just like, all right, kiss. Come on, just kiss. I'm like, the whole time I'm just like, any other movie. Come on, you fucking cowards. I'm like, what am I watching here? They didn't go there. That's not the kind of movie they're making, but you know, whatever. Take the good with the bad.
I think that you could very easily kind of adjust this material, that you could easily just kind of slide in a sex scene between these two.
Yeah, and why not?
Yep.
And why not he could still go for Uma and have all their scenes together.
I mean, think that if this movie would be made now, they would probably go there.
Yeah. Come on. Another thing that this movie does is that they try and populate. They try. They don't do it successfully 100% of the time, but they try and populate this world, you know, of this corporation, Gattaca, with all of these actors who are of a certain like stature or whatever. It's like Lord of the Rings. It's like Peter Jackson hiring, you know, the elves, right? You have to be a certain height. You have to have a certain look about you to make it as an elf in the Lord of the Rings movie. And so I think they tried to do that. They got volleyball superstar Gabrielle Reese to be in this movie as kind of like a coach or like a physical like instructor. You know, when they're doing their like the treadmill workouts, Gabrielle Reese is walking back and forth. And Gabrielle Reese is a big bitch.
Yeah, she's a trainer.
And so I feel like that was like an intention. But then there were certain things where it's like, okay, but kind of one of the main detectives working on this case is Alan Arkin.
Well, also, I take it that in the universe of the world that Gattaca is set in, do you think that this is really a first, at most second generation of people that you can sort of genetically modify?
I mean, they're probably the first, you know, generation of like, of people this age that are doing it.
He's an old school detective.
Right.
That maybe to do that job, even though Vincent's brother does work for the police force and is a detective.
But Vincent's brother is above Alan Arkin.
Yeah.
Alan Arkin is reporting to him, this younger guy. So, we also forgot that there's a murder at the beginning of this movie. And there's like a mystery. Somebody who was kind of in charge at Gattaca was killed.
Yeah.
And it's kind of ambiguous to whether or not Ethan Hawke was involved.
Well, I take it Ethan Hawke was involved with it.
But he wasn't.
I always take it.
He wasn't.
I always took it that.
It's Gore Vidal.
I always took it Gore Vidal was taking the fall for it.
I don't think so. Really?
That's what I read from it.
Oh, I never got that.
That Ethan Hawke murdered that guy when he was catching on to him a little when he was kind of observing him a little too closely.
It seemed like the timing was off to me. I don't know about that. That's something that we can all kind of...
Ultimately, I don't think the murder really matters, too.
Not really. It's just kind of a device to get the cops there and to keep Ethan Hawke on his toes the entire time. Mm-hmm. So we have this device of they're looking for me, and they're looking for somebody, and because of that, they're probably going to find me.
I always forget Gore Vidal's in this movie,
right?
And then I see his name in the credits because, like, when I was 13 years old, like I didn't fucking know who Gore Vidal was.
You said the director of Pirates of the Caribbean is in this? The future director of Pirates of the Caribbean is in this movie?
No.
That's Gore Verbinski. Yeah, he is, and it's kind of not a substantial role, but it's not quite a cameo. He's in several scenes. He's featured throughout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's in this movie, and even he's kissed more boys than you have.
Girls.
Boys kiss
girls, Lisa.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of this other weird queer layer of this movie is just the casting of Gore Vidal, I think is just so funny.
Sure. Did you dig anything up on this director?
Andrew Niccol. Andrew Niccol's had an interesting career. I mean, right after he made Gattaca, he's from New Zealand. He's a screenwriter from New Zealand. I mean, he started his career with doing Gattaca. He followed it up with writing The Truman Show that got him an Oscar nomination. So, I mean, I guess that he did kind of follow up Gattaca with something big, which was writing The Truman Show. His next directing outing was Simone in 2002 that I remember being excited for because I was a fan of Gattaca. But that movie's just such a letdown that it's just not good.
You saw it.
I saw it. It's an interesting premise, but I just don't really think that there's a lot going on in that movie.
For those of you not familiar, Simone is the biopic of Raven-Symoné. It's not. It's a 2002 science fiction drama written and directed by Andrew Niccol, starring Al Pacino and Catherine Keener.
And it's this director creating this virtual actress that doesn't exist, and they're putting her in movies.
Very timely. Would you call her artificial intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Roberts as Simone. We were both wrong. Oh, and look at that. Her spouse, as of 2002. Andrew Niccol.
Sure. I never saw Lord of War, even though I know that movie does kind of has its fans. It has a really famous opening credit sequence.
I don't know that I'm familiar with that movie at all.
With Nick Cage and Bridget Monahan and Jared Leto. Ethan Hawke's also in it too. He also directed In Time, which I think that director has actually said is like a bastard take on Gattaca.
Oh, I thought he was being shady.
No, I mean, he was being shady about his own work.
I
think that he was pretty much recognizing that I've already made this movie before and it was better.
Girl, that's so weird.
Yeah.
I read that on the there's in the Wikipedia article for Gattaca, there is a paragraph under legacy, and the paragraph is titled "Influence on the Movie In Time." Writer-director Andrew Niccol has called his 2011 film In Time a bastard child of Gattaca. I just read the 2011 film. That's so funny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I think he was just kind of being shady about his own movie.
Does In Time also have this obsession with the color green and gold? That was something about this movie at the time where I was just like, oh, this is very kind of moody. This movie is it's very distinct in its visual style. We talked a little bit about the location use in this movie.
Let's name some of the locations. So whenever we're driving by the freeway, we always drive by.
Well, I think the structure is now gone, but the exterior for the building that Jude Law and Ethan Hawke live in, it's at Cal Poly Pomona here in Southern California, and it's a very like this angular kind of pyramidal shape of this building. IMDb says it's not there anymore, and the last few times we've driven past it, I've been looking for it, and I feel like it was obscured by trees or a hill or something, but it might just be gone. They also shot outside of the Great Western Forum, which is now called something else. What's the forum called? Which is a venue for basketball games as well as concerts. We saw Elton John at the forum.
It's the scene where Irene is bringing the little piece of hair of Vincent, and she's going to bring it to a lab, and she walks up to the ticket booths to the forum, and that's where she gives it.
Right.
That's where she gives it to him. Yep.
Right. They also use the I believe it's a 2nd Street tunnel in downtown Los Angeles that was famously used in Blade Runner.
Everybody has to thank Ridley Scott of just how you photograph that tunnel. Is that you photograph it with wet walls.
Sure. It's a thing in movies, if you're not familiar, where they just kind of spray down the street with water. And in the tunnel in this movie and in Blade Runner, they sprayed down the sides with water, and it just reflects the light so much better, and it just looks more alive, less flat. And every movie since then that has shot anything in the 2nd Street tunnel does that. And they also light it green. There's something about movies in the late 90s, sci-fi movies, that they have to be green.
Yeah. What are other movies that are photographed like that?
The Matrix.
The Matrix, sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, especially with, yeah. It's like either green or that blue tint that the Matrix has when they go outside.
It's mostly green in the first Matrix. Especially when they're outside.
Oh, I thought there was kind of blue.
Dark City, City of Lost Children. It's just a thing where sci-fi movies in the late 90s are very green. All the lights on the headlights on all the cars, they're all green in this movie.
One of my favorite scenes is when it's right when they're going through the tunnel, right where they go through the tunnel, and Irene's bringing Vincent to these solar panels to watch the sunrise, and they cross the road. I love that scene. And Vincent has to take out his contacts because there's a stop, because they're patrolling all of these miles around Gattaca to try to find this person. And they take the little wand to see if they're wearing contacts, and he takes them out. And then they have to cross the road.
Yeah, and he can't see anything, and it's nighttime. And
Irene crossing this freeway to get where these solar panels are.
like a bad bitch.
Yeah. I'm just going to cross this busy-ass freeway.
In a ball gown and a shawl, just like, come on, follow me.
But anyways, they end up at the KJC Solar Farm.
Where's that at?
It is...
I think there's a famous picture of the Smashing Pumpkins that they took.
It's in Hinckley, California.
All right.
Harper Lake Road, Hinckley, California. But yeah, I love that scene.
I was trying to look up. There's a picture in the CD booklet of a Smashing Pumpkins album. I think it's Melancholy. And it looks fake. It doesn't look like they're actually there, but they're in front of these solar panels, and I always wanted to know if it was.
It could be
the same location.
There might be a few of these in Southern California too.
Yeah. Oh, there definitely are. Because there's some. I think there's some on the way to Vegas. There's some.
I think that there's some on the way to Bakersfield or something too.
But that scene always stuck with me, and when we watched it again, I was like, it's so much shorter. They're just kind of there for the sun coming up and hitting them and causing this reflection, and then they take a little bit of a stroll. But I was like, in my memory, it's just like the scene is so striking of them being there, like among these like rows and rows and rows of solar panels, and it's shot. Not only is it shot in these very striking locations of this like brutalist kind of like stark architecture, but they also do this thing where there's no people anywhere. There's cars on the road.
Yeah.
So crossing the freeway and being in the tunnel and the cops and stuff. But there's also these shots where they're in these locations, this giant, structure that their apartment's supposed to be in. And there may be like one person way in the back.
It was probably
It's very stark.
It was probably budgetary constraints, but I think it kind of works with the tone of
absolutely,
with the lonely tone of this movie.
No, absolutely, it works really well. But yeah, they do it in a lot of these crazy locations, and there's a shot of Ethan and Uma walking, and they're at this dam. It's like a big dam. And it's like, it's not a dam in the movie. It's just supposed to be this like thoroughfare that they're walking through. But it's these giant structures,
Sepulveda Dam in Encino.
Yeah.
I was reading.
They're just walking underneath these like huge, these structures are big. They're built for these industrial purposes. And they're walking through it. And it just looks like everything's just looming over them. And just visually striking. It's like they could have done a thing where it's like, it's LA in the future with tall buildings and all, but they didn't do that.
They didn't build this new Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of
extend, what's already here and add more buildings and stuff. Yeah. They did this very stark version, and it's really cool. And it doesn't even necessarily mean this is Los Angeles.
Yeah, it could be really anywhere.
The landmarks and the things that they're using are very like, I don't know. They're very they're iconic, but not in a way that you're like, oh, that's a Sepulveda Dam.
I feel like you and me, when we drive around Los Angeles, we're always really obsessed with locations like that here, of just sort of that mid-century modern 60s and 50s design of Los Angeles that they were trying to kind of bring Los Angeles into the future.
Right.
And it's kind of fun to point out all of those locations when you drive around the city that look like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Forum structure, it's a stadium, but it's like circular, and it has these like pillars outside of it, and it looks like a drum. It's really weird and strange, but yeah, there's a lot of these crazy, just giant monolithic kind of like structures out here, and it's all used extremely well. But yeah, there's just a lot of golds, a lot of greens, silver, things like that. There's blue in there, but it's like this almost this thing where it's like, I don't know, certain colors you don't see a lot of. There's not a lot of red in this movie. It's just it's a very deliberate style and visual like look of it. And just down to their clothes. Even when they go out to this concert that's performed by a piano player with 12 fingers.
That's very Cronenberg. If you've seen Crimes of the Future by David Cronenberg, like they do kind of weird shit like that.
Yeah.
Of just genetically modifying your body.
Yeah.
For the purpose of art.
Yeah.
That's very Cronenberg.
Yeah. And she says, "Oh, that piece can only be played with 12 fingers."
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, really? We just heard it. So someone with 12 fingers didn't play it. I wonder what piece it actually was, But for the purposes of this movie, you have to have 12 fingers to play that.
I was trying to put in my notes just kind of the queer themes of the story. And I kept thinking about predestination, of just kind of coming into this world as a person of the LGBT community.
Okay.
And society has these expectations of this is the life that you are going to be leaving. If you are a gay man, or if you are a man, it's that you're going to marry a woman. You're going to have a family. You're going to go get a career.
Right.
And just kind of, those are things that are kind of instilled in you at a very young age. Or at least it once was as the default.
Right.
It's a little different now.
Yeah. But I think still, for the most part, if you're just watching and absorbing, media, it's to an extent it's the default. But I think also it's the idea of being part of a society at large, but knowing it's almost like being a closeted gay person, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm fitting into the society at large, and they think that I'm fitting into everything, but really I got something else going on. And you're not going to figure it out until I tell you.
Which is definitely Vincent's journey in this movie.
Right. His whole thing is being in the closet and being secretive and having his own personal identity that he can't show to everybody else. But even as a gay person who is out, it's like we're out to everyone, but I mean, we don't know everybody on Earth. So when we go places, we go somewhere new, for the most part, to 80% of society. I don't know what the default of straight people is, but I think that most people just assume that everybody around them is a straight person, right? So if we go to a new city and we're sitting on a bus, does everybody just assume we're straight men? I don't know. Do I look like a crazy gay person because I kind of dress like an idiot? Maybe. Do I have a stupid haircut and dress like a 15-year-old? Possibly. Does that give me away? But do you know what I mean? It's that
totally.
thing of trying to navigate this one world, which is just the baseline, everybody fits in kind of world. But really, there's a whole other world underneath it that we're privy to, and we know what's going on.
And this movie's theme of just kind of being second best. Of that, there's something about these characters, according to society, that is second best. Of know your place.
Yeah. And I mean that's this whole civil rights issue.
Yeah,
it's a huge civil rights issue, and I mean, it's like. We're getting to this point where we're just like there's always something going on. We're always just like, we know the world is a crazy place. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
And especially right now, it's like, it's October of 2023 and we know the world is a crazy place right now.
And just kind of, all of these laws of don't say gay that are going throughout the country too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I mean, not even that. It's just like, I don't know, just being a Jewish person.
Yeah.
Is something where you're different in plain sight. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? To a lot of the world, it's like, oh, okay. Or to a lot of America, it's like, okay, well, you're white, but it's like, but also if you're Jewish, it's like, it's a huge thing. And it's like, I feel like there's so much going on within, the Jewish community right now that it's like, I can't even speak to, but it's rough right now, in the world, for as far as civil rights and just wanting to be an alive human because of who you are. And there's a lot of people out there who are like, nope, that's not going to fly with us. And so, yeah, right now in October 2023 or November 2023, I should say, it's a crazy place. But it's like a year ago, 2 years ago, we've been saying this for the past, I don't know how many years. Just like, sorry, you guys, this movie has some really rough content. And I know, like, we can equate it to what's going on in the world right now. But it's like, fuck, man. Shit's going crazy out there. Just be kind to each other.
But yeah, it's just kind of one of those interesting movies where you could put the experience of any minority.
Yeah. We are able,
characters.
as gay people, we're able to watch this and say, okay, I see that. I see myself in here. I see myself as somebody who needs to fly under the radar when I need to fly under the radar because I have to. Or I did have to do that at one point. And it's easy to insert. And that's I think that's good. That's good movie making, or that's good literature, or that's just any kind of good art, artistic expression where you can take what this person is giving you and insert yourself into it. I think that's great art. I think, for me, like 40-something, like gay Mexican dude to be able to be like, yes, Taylor, tell him, and be able to insert myself into that narrative. I think that's pretty genius, So for this movie to be like, we as gay people, we can see it, and maybe people of color can see it, and maybe, people in a neurodivergent spectrum can see themselves in this kind of situation. I think that's just really good artistic expression where people all across the board can kind of insert themselves into it.
I think it's a little more accessible than something like George Orwell's 1984.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I could never really get through 1984 just because I never felt like I was smart enough for that book, too.
Sure.
I mean, maybe that's just kind of speaking more about just kind of me being self-conscious, but there was always something that I could latch on to with the story of Gattaca.
Well, and the thing is, too, this is kind of a high concept movie.
Yeah.
So it's not like oh, it's not like a super populist kind of like, I don't know, it's not Armageddon. No shade on Armageddon or anything. But I feel like this movie, so what I'm saying is for people to be able to latch onto it, even as like kind of high concept and abstract as it is, that's kind of showing how well done and how well rounded it is, you know? Because sometimes movies that are a little too high concept, you're like, all right, get your head out of your ass. What's that one time travel movie about those like Office Space guys that like build a time machine? Now I'm not gonna be able to think of what it's called. Primer, yeah.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Something like Primer, where you're just like, I am way too stupid to understand.
And I feel like it doesn't even go into like Christopher Nolan territory too,
right?
Like Tenet or
right.
Interstellar,
right.
Where I feel like, especially a movie like Interstellar, feels like they have to over-explain science at a point where you're just kind of lost.
Right.
And I think that there's something very beautiful about the ambiguity of a story like Gattaca, that it doesn't need to over-explain stuff like that.
Well, the problem, if there is a problem with Christopher Nolan movies, I think that there's definitely some bros out there who would say that there's no problem with Christopher Nolan movies. But I think sometimes these very high concept movies like Interstellar or the Robert Pattinson one, what's called
Tenet. And Tenet just gets silly too.
Tenet, where Robert Pattinson's character's name is the protagonist.
Yeah.
Get the hell out of here with that. I think they're a little too long. And
this movie's like a tight hour and 40 minutes.
That's what I'm saying. For
it fits in a lot of its story in under 2 hours.
Okay, maybe the super intellectuals out there are just like, this movie isn't as high concept as you guys are making it out. Maybe this movie isn't. But I mean, to us, it is. Like, to our little pea brains, we're like, this movie is like fucking smart, right? But yeah, it's tight. It doesn't feel long. It doesn't feel short either. It doesn't feel like, ooh, that was a breeze. But it's like just the right length. And I don't know. I think for like we're saying, a high concept, what do they call them? Like hard sci-fi?
Yeah.
Like a hard sci-fi movie. It's like super accessible to, I think, a large audience. Because sometimes these hard sci-fi movies, like a Tenet or, something like that, or an Interstellar or something, sometimes they kind of lose the audience. What's the one with Amy Adams drawing on the whiteboard?
Arrival.
Yeah. Arrival's good.
Arrival's great.
Yeah. But I do think that sometimes you're like, wait a minute. how's she making letters out of that?
Sure. And I mean, as much as we love Blade Runner on our podcast, I do have to admit, there are elements of Blade Runner that are very boring, too, that I can see why people are turned off by those movies.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that just this movie is well done as a movie because it's visually like beautiful. The story's compelling, and it just has that thing where we're able to just. I mean, granted, the main characters are like two like white dudes or whatever, but at the same time, I do feel like you're able to kind of see the overarching kind of ideas of the big picture stuff that's going on in Gattaca. So, plus, I mean, Jude Law and Ethan Hawke.
When I rewatch this movie, I'm really struck with how good Jude Law is in this movie.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, it's kind of a hell of a American debut of that. This is the first time that American audiences are going to see you.
Right.
I mean, when you just look at his career trajectory after this, I mean, he immediately follows this up with doing a movie with Clint Eastwood, which I think that he plays gay in that movie.
Midnight in the Garden of Good and
Midnight
Evil.
in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Yeah.
And then the talented Mr. Ripley comes and gets him his first Oscar nomination.
Sure.
And then it just kind of, his career just explodes from there.
Okay, so he had done Wild.
Yeah.
Right, or that was released right before.
He had done a handful of movies in England.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think that he was discovered by the casting director from doing theater work in England. That you need to take a look at this guy. His name is Jude Law.
And then there was that era where he was kind of
A little overexposed.
Is it 2004?
2004. He was
Ooh,
in like
child, he's in a
he
lot of
was in
movies.
like 6 movies. Okay, let me see if I can name them. Do you
All
have his
right, I have it up
filmography
right- I
open?
have it up right now.
Okay, so 2004, he was in Closer.
Yes.
He was in Lenny Schmickett, where he plays the narrator. He
yes,
plays
a
Errol
serious-
Flynn in The Aviator.
Yes.
He is Alfie, the
Yes.
remake of the Michael Caine movie.
Yes.
Okay, so we got 4.
He's 3 more movies. that
3
year.
more movies in 2004.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, there was like a Chris Rock joke at the Oscars of just how many movies Jude Law had been in.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of the big ones from
Oh, wait,
04.
I'm sorry. 2 more. One of them is it says deleted scenes, but it's listed as 04, but it's for an 03 movie. So
What's
sorry.
that?
Cold Mountain.
Oh, well, I mean, that's from
But
from 2003.
But it's mixed into the 04 bunch, and it just says Cold Mountain : deleted scenes. I'm like, oh,
That
sorry.
was his last Oscar nomination.
Yeah.
They got him in Best Actor for that.
So he's in 2 more. One of them I like and you hate, and one of them.
Oh, Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. That weird movie.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
in his most known for too. I mean, he was a big. Him and his wife Sadie Frost were kind of a big driving force behind getting that movie made, too. I think that he produced it. Okay, and there's one more.
Yes.
Give me a hint.
Controversial director.
Controversial director. It's not someone like Woody Allen. It's not Lars von Trier.
All-star cast.
All-star cast. Oh, I don't know.
It's 2004.
Give me another hint.
Let's see, another hint.
Oh, I Heard Huckabees.
Yeah, it's I Heard
He's really
Huckabees.
funny in I Heard Huckabees.
I saw it in the theater. Don't remember it.
Yeah, he's really well used in that movie.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in 2006, he's in 3 movies. Yeah, 2003, he's just in Cold Mountain. But yeah, I mean, 6 movies, though. That's a lot for 2004.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And I mean, okay, granted, maybe I Heart Huckabees is a couple weeks. Aviator,
Well, and also, I mean, he's
a couple weeks.
like
Lemony Snicket.
he's pretty buried in the
A week-
Aviator
a week and a
cast,
half.
and he's like,
Yeah.
and he's the narrator of
Yeah.
Lenny Schmickett. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe he gets a little too much flack for all of those movies in 04.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Alfie like opening weekend with my friend Jessamine and us
Okay.
being so excited for it.
Just because it's Jude Law,
Just
right?
because it's Jude Law.
Because
Yes.
it's like it's Alfie. You're not like, what?
Just because it's Jude Law. And I think his career is also really interesting now that I think that he's kind of made this little character actor
Yeah.
niche that he doesn't really do the leading roles anymore.
Right.
But he's still in major movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's like young Bubble Butt Dumbledore.
He has that thick ass in the Fantastic Beasts movies. Those movies are kind of a mess, but I mean, he's nowhere near what's the matter with those movies.
Oh yeah.
He's probably one of the best parts of them.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it would have been interesting to see where they go, especially with what was to become of that character. And
And they're straight up
those two
hinting
characters.
at the relationship with him and Mads Mikkelsen,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
or also Johnny Depp, depending on what
Yeah.
movie you're watching.
Yeah. But I mean, yeah, I feel like this movie, I was very much like, all right, who is this man?
He has those cheeks in this movie, like it's. You were pointing out that it's almost like baby
He
fat.
still has baby fat in this movie.
He looks like his son.
He looks like his son in this movie. It's so crazy because we're just so used to what his face looks like now. It's just he's so much more filled out in this. But yeah, I was just like, okay, who is this man? All right, he's on my radar now. Talented Mr. Ripley comes out. I'm like, great. I saw Enemy at the Gates in the theater.
Oh wow!
I saw it with Matt Earhart.
With,
It's 2001, man. I was
Rachel
in the
Weisz?
movies at
Okay.
at that time. And I cannot tell you the anticipation for AI : artificial intelligence.
We were just talking about AI on the last episode, and
Yeah.
he's the robot gigolo.
Yes, he sure is. He's Gigolo Joe.
Gigolo Joe.
Yes, and he tap dances, and he has a tailcoat and plastic hair. like a perfect face.
So AI is pretty much like this futuristic take on Pinocchio. Who's Gigolo Joe in the story of Pinocchio?
he's almost a Jiminy Cricket.
I always thought that Jiminy Cricket was the bear.
Oh, you're right. The bear is Jiminy Cricket. You're right. You're
The
right.
little bear.
Yeah. He meets him at Pleasure Island. I don't know. He's not the boy that like makes him like smoke cigars. Cause he likes little David.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe he doesn't really have
Sure.
an analog. I forgot about the damn bear. That is some good CGI in that movie. That little bear.
Well, I think a lot of that bear is practical.
Puppet, yeah.
Is a puppet. I think he should have been Oscar nomination for Gattaca. I think that he walks away with all of these scenes. How he says the line, "Keep your ashes on your lids where they belong."
Keep your lashes on your lids where they belong.
That could have been the Oscar clip right there.
That's gay. Oh God, I don't even refer to your lashes. That is some gay shit right there. Look at what in the hell did these makeup people do? His face in artificial intelligence is like, damn, Gina.
We need to revisit artificial intelligence.
I'm telling you, I like
that movie's
it.
long and it's kind of a downer though.
It really is. It really is. But there's some good parts to it. Yeah. But not for nothing. Jude Law is again great to look at.
So I asked you a question when we were finishing up Gattaca of what is Vincent going to do when he gets back? And you kind of said, well, I don't think he's going to be living all that long when he gets back.
So that was my assumption, was that he does not plan
Very sad.
He does not plan to live very long. He just wants, his goal is to go to Titan. Whether he makes it back or not, I don't think he was kind of concerned with, because that's what he said to the brother. I don't save anything for the trip back.
Yeah.
All of this is to get there and to make it there. And he steps on the rocket ship in his full business suit, and the lights start swirling around him, and that's it. But the thing is that Jude Law is like, well, I saved up enough blood samples for you. You can live another like lifetime, with all the blood samples once you get back. But I'm like, I don't know, man. His whole thing was his life expectancy was like mid-30s.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jesus.
Jerome telling Vincent, no, I got the better end of the deal. I lent you my body. You lent me your dream. And also, like, Jerome's story at the end of this movie is kind of a bummer when he crawls in that chamber.
I'm like, I hope he took like a sedative or something, because there's a better way to do that.
Scene's very sad.
Find a bridge.
I also love the one of the last lines of Vincent, for someone who was never meant for this world, I must confess, as suddenly having a hard time leaving it. Of course, they say every atom in our bodies was once a part of a star. Maybe I'm not leaving. Maybe I'm going home. I think it's the last line of the movie.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that's a good line. That's a good one. Yeah, that's the thing. I just always assumed his whole thing was, I'm going up there. And they never really specify, like, how long these trips are.
What are they going to be doing?
What do they do?
What kind of space work are they going to be doing
Is it just
suits?
Space business work?
Yeah.
They're just like
going to be doing some filing on like the moon of Jupiter or something. No, the moon of Saturn, excuse me.
Saturn, yeah. Doing some taxes up there.
Is Saturn your favorite planet?
No, I like Jupiter. Saturn is very beautiful. I love the rings.
And Jupiter is the biggest planet, correct?
Yeah.
And you can just pass, storm. And if you were like to step through it, you could go like all the way through it.
Well, it's gas. Yeah.
It's gas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know what my favorite planet is.
It's not Earth.
I think I like Neptune.
It's blue.
It's blue. It's my favorite color.
Yeah. Not Mars. There's Martians there.
That's the planet with all the monsters on it.
All the monsters on it. Yeah, Saturn's cool. I love rings. But yeah, but that's the thing. I think Titan is like, because Saturn and Jupiter are so big, their moons are like fucking gigantic too. And I think Titan is like really big. I think Titan's like the size of like Earth.
It's like Earth? Wow.
I think so.
That's how big Saturn is.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. I think it's pretty gigantic. It said it's bigger than it's bigger than Pluto. Like Pluto is like a planetoid. That's why it's not a planet anymore.
I mean, isn't it pretty much just like a moon that's been kicked into the orbit of the kind of
right. Well, the other thing too is that Pluto's so far out, and its orbit around the sun is so big that in the time that it was discovered to the time that it was demoted from planet to
It
planetoid,
hadn't even made one
it
circle.
had not made one revolution around the sun.
Oh, that's so
it
sad.
had not even done 1 year in like Plutonian years. Yeah, but yeah, I think that's the thing about the abundance of moons of Saturn and Jupiter is that they are varying in size, and some of them are very, very big, and they're so far out that they can be that big and not considered planets and all that good stuff. But solar system's wild. It's a lot of space out there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of space out there.
You know, Gattaca came out the same year as Contact with Jodie Foster.
Oh, that's interesting. I like Contact. I have not watched Contact all the way through in a hot minute.
We love Contact.
I mean, you know, Zemeckis is a very ambitious director. Same guy. He made Death Becomes Her and he made Contact. Come on, you better work. That's another hard sci-fi, hard science movie.
Hard science movie, but I think that a lot of the interesting aspects for me are its religious aspects.
Yeah,
and just kind of the theme of faith in that movie, I think, is really fascinating.
Yeah. Well, they do a good job of introducing like the government and like, you know, I don't think faith has anything to do with what's out there, but I think a lot of people have it very different.
But just kind of where you're left with the Jodie Foster character at the end of that movie after she gets to talk to her dad, kind of the aliens bring her to that little island,
the beach,
and she has no way to prove it to people,
right? But
she just has faith that it happened,
right? Okay, and that's
kind of the theme of faith.
Dr. Ellie Arroway's journey is that her journey with McConaughey is faith is something that you just know to be true, but you can't prove it. And you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's the whole idea. Damn it, Matthew McConaughey. I hate like a hot religious guy.
Yeah,
I'm like, get out of here. What are you working out for? But yeah, that's interesting. The Contact came out the same year as this movie because both very like different aspects of sci-fi, different types of movies. I think Contact is a very epic in scope sci-fi movie where this movie feels
very personal.
Yeah, it feels very personal.
Yeah.
Feels very like, I don't know. Could you do this as a stage production?
Possibly.
You know,
I've always thought that there would be scenes of this movie that would be really good for acting classes.
Yeah,
especially between Jerome and Vincent.
Yes,
that I think that would be good, like pieces to do a scene study for.
Yeah. I think so too. I hadn't thought of that before that, but I agree. And now that I have this kind of idea in my head of the two of them as this like odd couple, like, you know, live-in kind of situation. I love that. I just love their scenes together.
I think that even the character of Irene just kind of seems like Vincent's beard. Just kind of this beautiful woman that he kind of takes a liking to.
He's like, okay, if I'm gonna fit in,
if I'm gonna fit in and have this
lady,
this lady,
and she's a good, she's a good match.
And it's late 90s Uma. I mean, one of the most beautiful women on planet Earth.
Well, and here's another thing that I was thinking the entire time I'm watching this. I'm like, her features are crazy. Her eyes are too big. Her forehead's too big. Her nose has got this swoop.
She kind of has a long face.
But that's what Tyra will tell you.
Because she's unusual looking.
That all these...
She's unique.
All these imperfections in her face make her so stunning. Then they just make her... You look at her and you're just like compelled to look at her face. Yeah. and that's just what makes her work as as this beautiful woman. Is just everything that's wrong with her. Her features are so overblown. But yeah, it's really quite something. To
I
watch
found
this
on
movie.
Instagram earlier today, it was makeup tests of Uma Thurman when she was playing Poison Ivy.
Okay.
And V. Neal is doing beauty makeup on her.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the mug on Uma.
A mug for days.
Unclockable, like that mug. She is walking face.
Yes, yeah. And yeah, that's the other thing. She does have these big exaggerated features, and it's very smart that the makeup artists, listeners, V. Neal is an Academy Award winning movie makeup artist. What did she win for?
I think that she won for Beetlejuice and maybe Edward Scissorhands, I think.
She worked a lot with Tim Burton.
She works a lot with Tim Burton.
And Warner Brothers, and she did stick around for Batman and Robin, and she designed this look for Uma, and our big thing, the big gag is that Poison Ivy is a drag character.
Yeah.
Like she just is.
And they give her drag makeup.
They give her drag
too.
makeup. They give her Valentina eyebrows. They block her eyebrows and draw them on top.
Her beautiful eyeshadow. Okay, so V. Neal has a handful of Oscars. She has won for Beetlejuice, Ed Wood, and Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh, work. Mrs.
Yep.
Doubtfire. And the thing about Ed Wood is that you might not even think that there's a lot of interesting makeup going on in that movie, but they really dragged out
Martin Landau.
Yeah. Yeah, they changed
Kind
his
of
face.
a character transformation.
Yeah, he talks about
into
it.
Bela Lugosi.
He was like, I don't
Yeah.
look like Bela Lugosi. They made me look like him. Like what they did with his upper lip, and like they gave him like the Reba lip where they like hid, they hid his upper lip to make it like look longer. It's like crazy, all this stuff. But yeah, the things that they can do. But yeah, Uma goes very far back with somebody like V. Neal, and she just has a face that just lends itself to like. I mean, she had to have started out. Was she a teen? She had to have been a teen model.
I think that she was a teen model. I mean, she was in all of these period and costume movies in the 80s, like
Right.
The Adventures of Baron Munchausen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that Henry and June was a pretty big deal for her.
Is she in Dangerous Liaisons?
She's in Dangerous Liaison. She plays the Cecile character.
Well, Henry and June was a big deal because it was NC-17.
yeah, it has those sex scenes. I've actually never seen Henry and June.
Oh, it's so good. My sister read Anais Nin, and I read Henry Miller because every 13-year-old boy in the library checked out Tropic of Cancer because there's mad sex scenes in that book. So I knew Henry Miller, and I read Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn. Did not understand them worth a damn, but I sought out Henry and June because I was familiar with Uma Thurman. I was like, oh, this is NC-17.
And this was pre
Girl.
Pulp Fiction, right?
Yes. Yes. But you know who is Henry Miller in Henry and June? It's our pal from Big Business.
Fred Ward?
Fred Ward. Yeah.
Love Fred Ward.
Yeah.
Super handsome.
Very handsome, very hot, and he plays Henry Miller like, okay, this is my kind of daddy. But yeah, Uma's in that. She plays his wife June, but it's really about Henry Miller and Anais Nin, these two writers in the 20s, and just kind of their like tumultuous love affair. His wife June Miller is, she's a character, and it's Uma Thurman. And when they put Uma Thurman in like a flapper, like a smoky eye, it's like, bitch, it works. She like looks so period. Mm-hmm. It looks so cool. But yeah, Uma's just kind of like she's been in the business a long time. I think she was 19 in Baron Munchausen.
Yeah.
I think she was around 19, maybe 20. And that movie's like 1989 or something. So yeah, she's been in the business almost as long as Ethan. These two have just kind of grown up in Hollywood. And I don't know if they met on this movie, but it was around this time that
they got together.
Got together as a couple, and then they became this like Hollywood power couple, and now they've got these two kids. One of them,
we love Maya Hawke.
Is great.
Love Maya Hawke.
She's just so charming. She's great on Stranger Things. She's really funny in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
kind of not really a funny like concept of who her character is, but I think she plays it really well. And we are just fascinated by, I mean, obviously it's genetics.
It's genetics.
It's genetics, baby.
Genetics, baby.
But it's one of those things where
she
it's like,
has Uma's face.
You look just like your mom and your dad. It's like, well, that's because they're my parents.
She has Uma's face and Uma's speaking voice, but I see her dad's eyes.
Sure. Well, I see Uma's eyes.
I see Ethan's eyes.
I see Ethan's mouth. So it's this thing, right, where I look exactly like my dad, right? I just look like my dad. And it's like, okay, yeah, anytime I go and I hang out with my dad's family, it's like, oh my God, you look like your dad. I thought you were your dad, blah, blah, blah. Yes, granted. But all my life, every teacher I ever had told me that I looked exactly like my mom. And I was like, that's so weird.
Interesting.
So I always get a lot of like, oh, you look like your mom and your dad. You look like so much like both of them. And it's like, well, yeah, they're my parents.
I probably look the most like my dad, but I think I can see traits of my mom in my face.
Mm-hmm. You have Grandpa Ben's eyes.
Sure. We
were in
Barnes, my mom's dad.
Your mom's dad. We were in Barnes and Noble one time, and I was talking to Grandpa, and he just did something, and he made some face, and I was like, "Oh shit!" I was like, "Oh shit!" I know that face. Wow, that was weird, and it was just his eyes, just this little expression that he made. I don't even know what he was doing, but I was like, "Oh wow, that looks like that's Scott's face right there." Yeah, but you do look like your dad, though. So, yeah, that's but that's genetics for you. But I mean, it's this question of if we, and it's you were watching a bit of the special features, and listeners, I'm here to tell you, if you don't have a DVD or a Blu-ray of this movie and you can't watch the special features, don't worry, because the entire IMDb trivia was pretty much someone watching this like little 15-minute documentary and making an entry for every line that happened, because they talked about the marketing campaign.
They talked about the marketing campaign that they put out a full-page ad in some newspaper magazine, which was an ad for Gattaca, and it was genetically engineering your children.
Yeah.
But they did it in a way that you didn't know it was advertising.
Yeah. And they claim that people contacted them and that they wanted to participate in, kind of making a super baby, a test tube baby. But it's like, it's that thing. It's like, would people be into this? If depending on how much money it costs, would you, design your baby and pick out? But I think a lot of people would do it.
Could you choose the sexuality of your child?
Well, that's
too.
Well, yeah.
Yep. And that's a whole other conversation too.
But this is a thing that celebrities, that celebrities are doing. It's like a lot of younger celebrities, a lot of these maybe a little bit more body conscious celebrities, like some of the Kardashians,
they're having a child through surrogate?
Through surrogates.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just like, well, I just can't be pregnant right now. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. If you have the means to do that, great. I don't know. I'm sure that they have legitimate reasons that they put out there as to why that they went this route. But it is very interesting that it's always these celebrities with, money is no object. That they're just like, yeah, I had a kid. Oh, wait, you weren't even pregnant.
That's why most of them have twins.
I assumed that Paris Hilton had her... I thought she was pregnant that whole time.
Yeah.
Nope. Surrogate.
Paris isn't getting pregnant.
I don't think that they, in a lot of the news, celeb news, I don't think it was really kind of front and center that it was a surrogate. I literally thought until those pictures came out with her baby, and her baby's very cute, but he got a big head, and people were saying he's got a big head, and she had to make this statement, and it was kind of sad. I was like, oh, poor Paris, that sucks. Because people were talking shit about her baby. That his head was too big. But he's cute. I think he's cute. But in those articles where they were like, Paris had to come out and make this statement that everybody was being awful about her little baby, you know, and the baby was just born like 6 months ago, and it was all through surrogacy. And I was like, I did not even know that. I don't know. I just assumed she had the baby. Although, I mean, in Paris's case, okay, she's over 40, so that's her excuse, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, but we're getting to a place where it's a lot more common for people with the means to say, sure, well, if we're gonna go in vitro, we're gonna have multiples, you know, and they're always having twins and, you know, all this stuff. So I think we're getting closer to all of that.
Yeah,
but you know, it's always going to be a matter of having enough money to do it. There's still going to be everybody else just doing it the old-fashioned way. Mm-hmm. It's a lot more fun anyway. So,
is there any last thoughts about Gattaca, Pete? I love this movie. I'm glad that we finally got to it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm glad that we watched it. I feel like we haven't watched it in a while, or watched it all the way through at least.
I have 2 framed photos of Ethan Hawke that are on our table right now, and they're stills from Gattaca.
We do. It's just a fun little
shout out to Harper Thompson from the Hawkeyes podcast.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
We've both been on episodes of their show talking about Ethan Hawke. I was on for Great Expectations, and you did Valerian.
I did.
City of a Thousand Planets.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I go back a long way with Ethan Hawke. I've had a crush on him since I was 7 years old. I just always thought, you know, that he was just just great. Just like I said, I've had a crush on him since I was 7. You know, he's just one of those. I'm a ride or die Ethan Hawke. You know,
same.
And same with Uma. I just think she's amazing. I think she's a great actress. I love everything that she's in. We're all about red, white, and royal blue.
I mean, she does camp very well. The same year that she did Gattaca, she played Dr. Pamela Isley in Poison Ivy.
Pamela? Yeah, and I mean, great intro for Jude Law into like American like pop culture. Like, I mean, maybe this wasn't it for everybody, but for me and you, I think it was.
And Star is Born.
Yeah, absolutely. So
we're going to be returning to a Jude Law movie later in the year too, next month.
All right, but yeah, I mean, it's a really fun movie, and I'm glad that we got to it, and I think it really. As far as a sci-fi movie from 97.
A sci-fi movie from 97 that I think that you would think, does this movie have the reputation of just kind of being wheeled in a biology classroom to watch Gattaca?
Right. But I mean, hey, if my teacher showed me this, I'd be like, sweet, what a cool movie.
Yeah. I mean, you get like a sex scene in this movie too, which is very exciting.
You get some buns.
Some
Ethan buns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You
get Jude's pretty face.
What's not to love? Yeah, listeners, it may not be the easiest movie to come across. I'm sure it's just on streaming, just for rent and purchase everywhere. But I think it's definitely worth a watch if you haven't seen it in a long time or at all. But yeah, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Glad we watched it. But yeah, we should probably
wrap up.
Get this show on the road. But before we go, I think we should. What should we do?
Patreon shout-outs? Let's hear them.
Shout-outs! We want to give a great big thank you and hello to all of our wonderful patrons. There's a lot of you out there, including our friends Tammy, Roberto, Brett, Trent, Daisy, Kelly, Chrissy, Steven, Jake, Desiree, Laura, Thomas, Lori, Brenna, Lawrence, Lisa, Alexis, Thomas, Millie, Ted, Benny, Jamel, Melanie, Susan, JJ, Shelby, another Jamie, Drew, Genevieve, Dawn, Joshua, Emily, Aaron, Nick and Shannon, Christine, and Rufino. You guys.
Thank you for being a friend.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for being patrons. We've got a lot of really fun additional content over on our Patreon. We are starting a new series of reviewing TV shows that had a great big impact on us. We have 2 in the can right now. We're going to be coming out with a lot more as time goes on. So head over to patreon.com/movies@escape for that. There's also over 30 watch with commentaries. We pick a movie, we record a commentary track as the movie is playing. We comment on it, and we give you instructions on how to sync up your copy of the movie. So if it's on Netflix or what have you, give you instructions on how to press play on the movie on your television or laptop, and then press play on the podcast on your phone or whatever. Listen to them at the same time, and it's really cool the way they sync up. You can also just listen to the track as a bonus episode, and it works just as well. But that's a lot of fun. It's over on patreon.com/movies@made-us-gay, and all of your donations go directly to keeping the show up and running on the air every week, ad-free for your listening pleasure. Although, now that we're heading into November, just be mindful we will be taking a short break after the holidays, as we do every year, but that's a couple weeks away. But check out Patreon. That's cool stuff. But we'd also like it if you would rate and review the show.
Give us 5 stars. We would love to read some kind words from all of the listeners.
Yes, indeed. If you are a listener on Spotify or an Apple Podcasts, there's a 5-star rating that you can give to us. Just smash that 5 stars all the way over to the right, and that really helps us out. And if you're an Apple Podcast listener, if you have an iPhone, Apple Podcast comes pre-installed. Just open up the app, search Movies That Made Us Gay, give us a 5-star rating, and then write us a cute little review telling us how much you love us.
We'll read it on the air.
And yeah, we'll read it on an upcoming episode. We love when we get those. Follow us on socials. We're most active on Instagram. We're at Movies That Made Us Gay on Instagram. And any, likes, comments, reposts, sharing, all that stuff really helps get the word out and get the show some recognition. We are almost at 3,000 Instagram followers. I mean, you guys, 3,000 Instagram followers, that's crazy. But spread the word, and hopefully we'll get some more. But yeah, follow us on Instagram. We're active on that the most, but we're still on Twitter, X.
We're on X, Threads, Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm. At MTMUG Pod on all those. But yeah, Instagram, we're the most active. If you want to follow our personals, feel free. My name is Pete. I'm at Peter Lasagna on Instagram and Threads and X.
Scott Youngballer on Instagram, and follow my letterbox.
Yes, indeed. And whatever Scott's watching on Letterboxd, I'm pretty much watching it right next to him. So he writes the reviews, and follow him on there. They're funny reviews. Check us out. But until next week, everybody, we'll see you very, very soon.
Bye.
Happy November. Bye.